Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the official podcast for the Houston chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. And I'm your host, Monica Pohl. So we're thrilled to be here with you and highlight another member. The whole point of PRSay is for us to get to know each other. This is an opportunity for our members to get to know some of our other members that they may not see in person when they're at events, or they may not have an opportunity to connect with because they're not in the same space. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take care of some housekeeping. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. And if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, drop us some comments. And my guest and I will be sure to circle back. So we'll go ahead and get this episode kicked off. We've got Monica Pohl joining us. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to virtually meet you.
Excellent. Likewise. So tell us a little bit about how you got into public relations, the sector you're in. You know, I always ask people, how did you pick PR, or was it PR that picked you? So that's my question for you.
I think it was a little more of the PR picked me side of things. I did get my degree in corporate communications from Baylor University in Waco, Texas. From there, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I feel like it's a very encompassing degree. I could have done marketing, could have done comms or sales. And I think what really drew me to PR is the creativity side of it, of being able to help a business find their voice, solve different sets of problems. And I don't think a lot of people understand what PR is. I think the first thing when I tell people I work in PR is they're like, oh, like a publicist, like we're a celebrity. And as much as fun as that sounds, it's definitely not all that we do. And so how I fell into it specifically was into the tech sector. That is my specialty. My first job outside of undergrad was going to work for a really small niche firm where they specialize in crisis communications, specifically for a major telecom company. And I think with that, I really found my niche in being able to be creative and problem solve issues and crisis especially. But then that kind of opened the door for the rest of the PR world of understanding what it is as a whole. From then I worked with a lot of other smaller agencies, and with that came, working with venture capitalist firms and all of their different portfolio companies, divisions of big tech, basically anything under the sun. I've worked with fintech, I've worked with investor relations, I've worked with the corporate communication side of things, development messaging. Honestly, anything that touches tech PR, at this point, I feel like I've done a little bit of all of it. And I think that's a lot of where this world is going. I think, tech especially is what's running our world. Everything we use and touch has some sort of relation to tech itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was the big draw.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And, for people who automatically assume that public relations is about being a publicist or maybe being a spin doctor or something like that, they don't really understand how each space has its own niche and has its own needs that are completely separate. And so I think the fact that you've been able to excel in that space is really exciting. And I know you've really have dove into some of the other aspects of that, particularly DEI and some of the other just new facets of corporate communication that have evolved over time. Because I will tell you, when I graduated with a degree in public relations years ago, that was not, those terms didn't even exist. And if they did, they were used at a very high level academic setting and not in the corporate space. So I think that evolution of comms has really changed.
Absolutely. I think it's so incredibly important. The world we live in is so much more accepting and diverse. DEI especially is something I'm incredibly passionate about. Obviously, my ethnic origin is a little bit more of leans to the Asian side of things. And that's something whenever people ask why I've taken my husband's last name and things like that, I've noticed a stark difference between when I had my maiden name, just in the way I speak and the way, I'm working in the field. It's not as common that you see minorities, especially working in the field, much less a minority woman. And so I think it really sets me apart, and also gives me a little bit of a veil when I took my husband's last name, is that people's immediate initial reaction wasn't, oh, she is a minority or what that might look like. And I think I love working with companies who really do value diversity and inclusion because it gives people a place, levels the playing field a little bit more, making sure that women and men are, either paid equally, are able to excel in those fields. And I love supporting women who are in tech because I feel like there's so far and few between that, it is a very male dominated world. And I think all of us women at some point would say we've been mansplained about how to do our jobs or what to do. And obviously working in tech, I do work with incredibly smart and talented people. So it's just something that I've always been really passionate about, is to really shine the light on people who maybe are in the shadows of what each company is working on, and really be able to highlight their voice, their talents, and their passion for whatever they're working on.
Yeah, no, I agree 110%. And, I had a guest on recently who talked about the wage gap and how important it is to really be having these conversations at an organizational level. And I know PRSA has done a really good job of exploring that. And so I'm very proud to be associated with an organization who really puts that in the forefront for members.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to the wage gap, it's something that is not as talked about as widely, and it's something that is becoming a little bit more of a nuance nowadays. But when you take a look at what the older generations used to say is, spend your time with the company, build that company loyalty. But what I'm seeing is that those companies that have the people who have been there, 5, 10 plus years, aren't being valued in the same light as, let's say, a newcomer in that same position. It's a drastic change in what I see in salary, especially, is that, someone who may have been with the same company since they graduated from college is not getting paid equally to someone who's maybe jumped around a few times. And so I think there's that caveat of, is that experience valued? Are they being pigeonholed? Why is there such a discrepancy in the pay itself? And, even just between some women and men, like you're saying, the wage gap of, hey, maybe some younger male who just graduated from college, maybe making the same as a minority and or woman who has been in the field for, a few years. And so I think that's something that's culturally and just across, as we evolve as people, that is something that is a lot more important, is to have that equality, to bring to light all of these things that maybe weren't as socially acceptable a few years, 10, 15 years ago, and have evolved to what it's become now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's really important. And, there are seasons to all of that. And I know when we first connected, there was a couple of topics that I thought would be really good for us to connect on. And that was certainly one of them, because I obviously, as a woman of color as well in this space, it's important for me that other women have the supports, and just know that we've been here and we're going to continue to be here, and we're going to continue the work and help our sisters move forward in the field. And I love that our PRSA chapter is so active with our local Houston chapter, because I think there's a lot of opportunities for mentorship, which is so key in this business.
It is. I think that's, one of my first managers I've had in the field was a woman of color. And I think that was so great, because knowing that someone had my back and understood the struggles that I had with, even just pitching and having my name, my maiden name be, in my email. It's good to be seen, to be felt, to her and be heard and humanized. And I think that's something sometimes we forget as PR professionals, that at the end of the day, we are still human. We're not just the driving force behind a company and what we're saying. And so that was something that I love to see. And I like to pass that on, pass the torch on, is to be able to be that mentor, be that figure of, hey, it is okay to be a woman of color, to be a person of color, regardless of your nationality or your sexuality, to be able to be heard, to be loved, to be supported. And I think that's all that we want as humans, is just to be seen and heard and to be understood.
Absolutely.
And having that relatability is nice.
Yeah, no, I agree 110%. So let's shift gears just a little bit, and let's talk about some of the other topics that you're well versed in, WIT and remote working, some of the things that PR has had to learn to adjust to. I mean, back in the day, we've all watched Mad Men, right? We all remember the pool, Right, right. The way things were done in the, decades before, and even in the 80s and 90s is completely different from how we do it today. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Of course. I think, what when we're, transitioning into like women of color, women in tech especially, that is a field that's evolved so much. When you thought of engineers in the 90s, they were men who maybe had the mustache, the wide frame glasses, and that's evolved so much that, a lot of places in the country have STEM programs
Yeah.
for children. And to be able to get into that field earlier on, like I said, tech is driving our world at this point. And to be able to support that and have young women see that they can be more than just a homemaker, they can be more than just into fashion and beauty and whatever it may be, that there is an opening for them to be in tech. And I think that's supporting that next generation is incredibly important in that aspect, because the world's going to keep evolving. Our cars are going to become smarter. Our cars are going to, at some point, gas is going to evolve out. We're going to just have electric cars across the board. Things like that, I think, is the agility of the companies and us as PR professionals, is to be able to quickly pivot and adjust with where the changes are going. And I think what the season of that is, as electric vehicles are becoming more and more prominent, that is something that a lot of companies are going to jump in towards, lean into. Yeah. And with that, there is so much change and how we have to work and what our work days look like. That may mean we get to have a little bit more of a flexible work schedule. And, post pandemic, a lot of companies have shifted towards a hybrid or fully remote type of workforce. And I think that really gives people who want to have families, who want to have other like outlets of expression, to be able to do so and still have the work and performance be at the levels they're at. Which, I think at the end of the day, the younger generations really appreciate that from an aspect of, it's not your typical 9 to 5 anymore. And
right.
PR never really has been, your typical 9 to 5. So I think that change has been immensely like great for companies to start to evolve and understand that, people are still able to be incredibly productive outside of that normal 9 to 5 structure of what work and life should look like.
Yeah, that's true. And, you read articles and you read blogs, you listen to podcasts to talk about work-life balance, but in PR, is it really balance, or is it really just, shifting gears? Because I think oftentimes that 9 to 5 mentality, like you said, never really existed in this space that we're in. Maybe for some, maybe in healthcare, or maybe, in some oil and gas, but generally speaking, anyone in the public sector or in the government space or in the PIO space, news happens 24 hours. And so I think to pigeonhole the profession into one box is really a disservice, because when we've got the ability to work from home or on the road, even remotely, then we're still serving our client and we're still serving the company we work for.
Absolutely. And technology has come so far. We can be in the middle of the woods and still have service on our phones. And so I think that really is a game changer, is to be able to have technology have come so far and be able to support that lifestyle as well. I think, people are on their phones a lot, whether that be to just enjoy a fun TikTok or watch funny videos, connect with friends and family. But there is also the other aspect of, what are these companies doing? What are they saying? And how do we paint that picture for them and help guide them to be a little bit more modern, to be with the times, is, I guess, the best way of putting that.
No, I love it. That's great. That's absolutely a great way of putting it. And I think you bring up some really valid points. And I think our members listening are probably very interested in continuing the conversation. Hopefully when we're at events together, someone will come up to you and say, hey, I heard you on PRSay mention this. And let me tell you what I think about that, because that's the best way to continue these types of conversations, because they're so important to the profession.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to meeting the PRSay chapter of Houston and get to know everyone a little bit better. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book, been working in the field for a while, but I've still got a lot to learn, as we touched on earlier. This is just a field that you have to be agile in. I think when you get comfortable is when when things don't quite work out as right.
That's right. That is so true. That's so true, Monica. All right. How can people connect with you? What's the best way? Are you on LinkedIn? How do you prefer people reach out?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. My username is Monica Lee Pohl, and that is Monica, L as in lemon, Y as in yellow, Pohl. Feel free to shoot me a direct message, and I am super responsive on there. I'd love to connect with as many of you as possible. I look forward to meeting everyone. And if you have any questions or just need a friend to talk to, I'm here for you.
That's awesome. Great, Monica. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And I look forward to actually connecting in person.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me, Veronica.
You bet. All right, that wraps up this episode of PRSay. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Monica Pohl. She's amazing. And the fact that she's got so much insight into PR and the tech space and all the new technologies that are driving our profession forward. So I hope you get an opportunity to connect with her and continue that conversation. Now, we're going to wrap up this episode, but we will have more members on for you to connect with. Make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes as we interview other members of our chapter. And if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments and Monica and I will be sure to connect. So with that, I'll wrap up this